I'd like to call the July 25th meeting to order at 6:33, it looks like. Could you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I'd like to call up Pastor David Fettis from the Church of Family of Faith for our invocation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Quick commercial. We have upcoming Love Monee, an event that's happening a week from Saturday for the village. So just a quick commercial if any of you either want to help serve in that or have people that you know who have needs, let them know about it, because there's going to be a lot of food, a lot of other stuff, a lot of service events going on, and the Monee Alliance of Churches is involved in that. Okay? As we pray to open the meeting, just want to quote two verses from the book of Proverbs. There is no wisdom, no insight, no plan that can succeed against the Lord. Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and your plans will succeed. So let's commit this meeting to the Lord. Father, we thank you for the opportunity to live in this free land and in this village. We thank you for those, Lord, whose job and task it is to be leaders in this village, and we pray for wisdom for them tonight. We pray that as they deliberate and make decisions and plans, that you will guide those plans and make them successful. We pray, Lord, for all who are living in this village, for your safety and protection for the citizens, for your blessing on their lives, for your help towards those who struggle. We pray for those who are active as police officers and fire officials and as first responders, for all who work in public works and in other ways serve the people of the village. Be, Lord, their wisdom and strength each day. We pray, Father, that we may dedicate our lives to serving you, but also, Lord, to ministering to and blessing each other in the way that we treat each other in love. For Jesus' sake, amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pastor. We'll go to roll call, please.
Trustee Blue?
Yes.
Trustee Gray? Trustee Holston? Trustee Horn? Trustee Razik?
Present.
Trustee Udris?
Present.
Thank you, Denisha. Open to the public, agenda items only. Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Could I please have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to remove the letter of recommendation. It's E3. I just think it begs more discussion and inspection.
That's on the P&Z recommendation?
It is, yes.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Second. Any discussion? If not, roll call, please.
Trustee Razik?
Yes.
Trustee Udris?
Yes.
Trustee Blue?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, we will then go ahead and come back to the letter of recommendation and discuss that. Trustee Horn, just so you know, under the consent agenda, we we removed the letter of recommendation number 3, and we're going to discuss it right now. How would you like to start? Shall we can call the people forward if we wish.
Oh, yeah, I know. That's right. Pass the consent agenda first, and then we...
I thought we did.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll pass the, motion to pass the consent agenda, eliminating number 3, letter of recommendation.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion on that? If not, roll call, please.
Trustee Horn? Trustee Razik?
Yes.
Trustee Udris?
Yes.
Trustee Blue?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes. Okay, so now we'll move to discussion of the letter of recommendation. You have that in your folder there. I might say that I was at that meeting, and the people are here that that got the negative response, I'll say it that way. Would you like to come up and talk about your project, and we can ask you some questions too? Please introduce yourself,
Shane and Stephanie Rasmussen.
your name and address.
25810 South Chestnut Road, Monee.
There's a few things from the.
Wait, just discuss what you want to do.
What do you need to?
Excuse me, yep. Could you just explain the project in totality so that the board and the audience in attendance today understand it from the beginning, okay? Exactly what you're looking for.
Okay, we're looking to build a 40 by 72 pole barn in our backyard, which is less than 30% of our yard, to put our vehicles into and equipment. It's gonna match the house exactly the way the house is, blue and white. We're gonna match the pole barn with that wainscoting on the bottom, white, blue with a white roof. We just redid this entire house. It was a foreclosure. I'm trying to, everything I'm doing, I'm not, was motivated towards this. So I'm not gonna build something up that's just an eyesore. I redid the house, so I want it to look, nice. I don't want the thing to be an eyesore to anybody. The neighbor had a problem with the height of it, but there's tree lines that he can't see in my yard as it is. That's what I didn't understand, which I took pictures of, showing the pine trees that are higher than, from his backyard, he cannot see my backyard. So I didn't understand why this came up about him seeing it, because he can't, which I have pictures of that. There's a water problem that's been happening in that area, I guess, for some years. So when we graded the backyard out, the front of the house now, the front corner of my house and my neighbor's takes on water. But the front, I've not added the dirt or grass, which would slow this water. And then she had a water line changed, which also sank everything. So the water problems are not just from me grading out the backyard. There's more to it than this. Plus the city needs to have a drainage line put in at some time, which they told me they're trying to do it, they just haven't had the time. So that's where we stand.
Okay, so for the board's edification, I also was at that meeting, and the perspective is this: the request for the variance has to do with the height of the building. The applicants meet the requirements for it's under 30% of the totality of the rear yard square footage. Setbacks are addressed; they're all proper. And however, it is the height of the building that is improper, and the variance requested was 7 feet 6 inches, if my
4
memory
inches.
serves me correct.
7 feet,
And
4 inches.
for clarity, the height is by zoning code is measured from ground elevation to half the distance between the peak and the ceiling joist. So that comes out to 17 feet 6 inches.
4
And
inches.
4
I'm
inches,
sorry.
I'm sorry, yes. And the allowable maximum height is 10 feet. One thing I would like to point out is that this is in a C1 district, which is an overlay district of what used to be residential. So they would be in what's called a legal non-conforming use at this point. And under the legal non-conforming use, it does allow for accessory buildings. So whether or not the building can be there by code is fine. It can be there. The focus is on the height difference and the elevation change. The applicant is requiring 14-foot walls and then the roof would be above that. So 14-foot walls with I think it's a 412 pitch, is that
Yes.
right? 412 pitch going up to a peak. And so the overall variance that they're requesting is 7 foot, I believe it's 7 foot 4 inches
Correct.
actually, above the allowable 10 feet. That would allow them the 14-foot walls. They can explain why they need the 14-foot walls, and it would also allow for the peak to be in there as well. One other comment that the board needs to understand, the applicant brought up drainage. This being a C1 district, there will be a site plan requirement for placement of the building and the displacement of the rainwater runoff of the building. There's gravel now, which is probably, I would constitute that as semi-impervious. A building is 100% impervious. So they're, they fall under, they're existing as a residence in a commercial district because it is a legal non-conforming. It's a little bit conflicted, but we can work our way through that. So the main focus before the board this evening is the height of the building.
I have a question for the Rasmussen. So the plans that you made for this building, did you put them before the building commissioner?
Yeah.
Or would that be a requirement?
They
You
have.
did?
He has.
So the building commissioner seen them, and did he sign off on them?
I think that we had to do this first.
I see.
He does know.
My question was, did the building commissioner sign off on these plans?
No,
No.
no,
Okay.
because he recognized that it required a variance, so it had to go through zoning first.
I see.
Okay.
Thank you. And did the zoning committee state why it was their recommendation was to decline this request? Was it simply because of the height?
It was, that's all that they were addressing. It was due to the height of the building.
I see.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm sorry to ask you this question again, but did the planning and zoning committee go down and take a look at the site? Do we know?
I can't speak to that.
No, I wondered if someone had mentioned that at the meeting.
I
at
was
all.
there,
Right.
at the site,
Right.
had driven by a couple of different occasions, but,
Okay.
yeah, it wasn't mentioned at the
Okay.
zoning board hearing. So, and they were just, 7 foot 4 inches above an already existing 10 foot. That was the request, and that's what garnered the unfavorable
Okay,
recommendation.
thank you.
You bet.
Are there any other questions?
I have, I'm sorry.
Let's see. Would you explain to the board why you want that extra 7 feet? So they're
The
all
7
in.
foot, it's not the 7
I
foot I
know,
want.
but-
I need the walls to be.
Why they're, yeah.
Because I need a 12 by 12 door. And the only way I can get a 12 by 12 door is to raise the wall height to 14. If
But why
I-
do you need them to be so high? You explain to
Because I
them.
have a box
The
truck.
truck, yep.
The one truck.
My one truck is too tall to go through a 10, if if it's too close. It would just, if I
Yeah.
clipped it, it would cause a lot of damage.
Right.
So this gives me the room to make sure I'm never gonna hit it.
Yep.
It's basically that. And I don't, the plan is calling for it to be at 14.
Yep.
So then the trusses are for the roof and they're pre-made, so. I want it as small as possible, but it's
Right.
what I need.
Right.
So what is the height of your box truck?
It's right, I couldn't.
Did you
I
say-
know that it'll go through a 10-foot door, but barely. That's
So it's
like
about
nothing,
10
no
feet.
ladders on it, anything.
And so you couldn't have 12-foot walls?
You can't have 12-foot to put a 12-foot door. To put a 12-foot door, I need it at 14, because the tracks and all that have to hang, so that's what it calls for. When we design the building, that's what it calls for. You can't shorten it if you want a 12-foot door.
Right, that makes sense.
And there's no opportunity for an 11-foot door?
I don't think so.
I've never seen
I've
one.
never seen one. And I
They're
installed the
all-
doors, so yeah.
They're
never
all
had
in
them.
even numbers.
Yeah, they're, I think even on the width, they're even on even numbers.
So are we talking about two separate things? We're talking of one, the height of the building, and two, the drainage?
No, not here.
before this board is the height of the building only.
Okay, thank you.
Drainage is handled through normal protocol.
Okay, thank you.
Which is through the building inspector.
Correct.
further
As
questions.
far as the building, would you like to describe the building, what kind of a finish it has, what it's gonna look like? We see the picture, if anyone's opened up to the picture of the building.
Color version
You can
that
see
I
that they're
submitted?
showing two different sides of it.
Oh, I don't have.
Oh, okay. Would you like to look at mine?
No,
it's
I
no
just,
big
I
deal. You know what
submitted
it
a
is.
color version, so
It-
it was
it's-
blue
It's
with white.
painted, it's pre-painted, it's got a kind of finish to it. You know, I installed these buildings, it's almost like a Butler building, but it's got a painted finish of both, you know what I mean, the white and the blue are pre-painted. I don't, you know what I mean, I painted, they're all, comes with trim packages, all that. I mean, it's like
So
a,
the wainscoting at the bottom, how
the
many
wainscoting would be about 4 foot, I think,
of white,
of
and then
white.
it's blue,
Then there'll be a trim, and then the blue,
and then a white
and then a
roof.
white roof.
So it is in no way an eyesore.
No,
No.
it will match
It's a
the
nice-looking
house,
building.
identical.
Yeah.
Any other trustees have any questions about this? Anyone from the audience have any comments about this? If not, yeah, is someone want to?
These are the neighbors. They're the neighbors. I'm the neighbor from the other.
Get to the mic, sir. Thank you.
I'm the neighbor from the other side. Gary was the one about the height and the trees and everything. No, the garage will be in my plain view. And the ongoing issue with our neighbors is this drainage issue. They are causing damage to our house. I have a sandstone foundation, and the displacement of water by filling basically over half of their backyard with gravel. I've lived at this house for 8 years, and I have not had this much water every time it rains. I still have water in my basement from 2 rainstorms ago. My daughter just had surgery. Now we're looking at the threat of mold because we just can't keep this water out. Moat forms from my garage, goes all the way around the front of my house to our sewer. My wife has sent the neighbors pictures. Take a look outside. Look at the water you're causing us. We get no response. And it's really becoming an ongoing problem because, like I said, my foundation's sandstone. I literally have water shooting through the actual boulders. And I don't know what to do, how to get this to stop. And they keep promising us they'll do something, they'll raise it, they'll angle it. They put the drain tile, from what we're understanding, in the wrong place. They put it right on our property line instead of closer to their house. I was told 5-10 feet off their house. It's on the actual property line, and they're flooding us out. My wife has photos of the flood on her phone, if anybody wants to actually see that it is an actual issue. I could probably take a personal watercraft and float it in my backyard now.
Wow. I have a question for you, sir. So are you, going back to the height of what this building would be, did you say you can see it?
No,
your-
from our house, we would be able to see it clearly.
What, through the trees or
No,
above?
just right over the fence.
So there are no trees between the
The
Oh, I
trees are
see.
on the south side
I
of their
see.
property.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand
So on
that.
our side, we're the neighbors to their north, on
Right.
the corner.
Gary's the one that's opposing.
Gary's the one that's on the south side.
Right. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I just wanted to mention that if for some reason we approve the building, I'm going to say to you that I think it will correct the water problem because it will then be dealt with.
Okay, because
through-
we've had the water department out at our house several times.
I know, I understand that.
Okay.
We've got some homes in, what community is Bill Gray in?
Highlands?
The Highlands, yeah.
Their backyards, they get 3 foot of water. I watched the guy's fence just rot away because the drainage is wrong, okay? Now, those homes were built long before the village grew up. Can I say it that way?
Oh, yeah,
We're
our house
finally
has
in
been
the-
here before the village.
We're finally in the 21st century, that's how I feel.
Our house
We're
was built
changing our
1873.
codes and every other thing, trying to move up that. There's really nothing we can do to help them poor people. And they're gonna have to put in a system themselves if they decide to correct it, you know.
Right.
But I think in your case, because of some new construction going on, I think that will be addressed. That would be my opinion. Yes, sir.
If you look at the street now, you start at Gary's house, which is the one before us. Now, his house was built, and if you see the picture, his house, when he built it, I don't know how he got away with building it up so then the water drains to both our houses. So now that I remodeled the house and graded the backyard, so now all the water he was pushing to me, I graded it out, instead of me being the bull, so I graded the yard out. So now the water's going further down to him. So it's, you can say, well, okay, it's us for grading the yard out. But we could say it was Gary before that for, you know what I mean? He
Right.
just-
See, but that's the
Now
problem.
it's
It's,
directly on the street.
it's not a matter of tuck pointing. Water's literally coming through the actual boulder. You can see it, and it's eroding my
I
actual
understand what you're
boulders
saying.
of my foundation. So the tuck pointing's not even the issue.
What, with a roof of that size, I believe that would be addressed
Okay.
before we'd allow, it's gonna be one, okay, if we approve the building, then we go into the landscape. David even mentioned what, Mr. Wallace, I should say, of the content of gravel with water. It's not as good as land.
Right.
Well,
But I've already lost
maybe
the
the pipes
dryer.
that are there
I've already had to
aren't
repair my
good enough either,
washer. And like I said, the mold
Yeah.
with my daughter who just had pellet surgery, now there's the potential for mold in the
understand,
house,
and
and I
I
can't
do
get rid of this
understand.
water.
Well,
I mean,
thank
I'm
you very
literally
much for
watching
your-
it come through our floor.
Sure.
You know, it'll be wet in the middle of the floor first. It's actually pushing the seal coat that was originally on my
Yeah.
floor. It already pushed that off. And like I said, literal water squirting through the boulders, I'd say almost 2 to 3 feet from the wall before it actually hits the ground.
Well,
heard flowing
again,
water.
this is stage one, and let's see what happens here, okay?
Okay.
So we understand your water problem, and I'm the kind of a mayor that will push to have something done.
Okay, thank you.
That's how I feel. I'll say that right out in the open. I know it's a costly item, but we'll see what we can do,
Okay, thank you.
okay? You're welcome. Any other discussion on this? Questions, okay?
Can I mention one thing?
Please do, Larry.
If I may, however the board decides to choose with this, the one issue with the variance, the first element though, is that it does not adversely affect the adjoining landowners. Any variance we pass, whether it be a variance or special use permit, your first preamble in that ordinance sets forth that it does not adversely affect the adjoining landowner. Just something to take into account. And there's no ordinance on the books tonight to vote for, so you can either authorize me to either draft it or not draft it. But the one element I think is important to take into consideration is that, that's why you notify the adjoining landowners that it does not adversely affect them. You gotta make that finding specific in that ordinance. That's all.
Very good. Okay, I'd like a motion on this if we could.
I'll make that motion
To what?
for the variance on
Allowing the
Allowing the-
variance,
yep.
okay?
the
Is there a-
extra height.
Is there a
the
second to
building.
that?
May I offer one thing? It's not on the agenda, so the motion would have to reflect to authorize me to draft it for further consideration.
Okay.
So, because the zoning board said, had a negative response, the ordinance was not drafted. Tonight, if the board deems appropriate, you need a motion authorizing myself to draft it for the board's review and consideration.
Okay.
If the motion fails, then the
All right, I'll make a motion for Larry to draft that, the variance of the ordinance.
Okay,
I'll second that.
second that? Any discussion on that motion? If not, roll call, please.
Trustee Horn?
No.
Trustee Razik?
Yes.
Trustee Udris?
Yes.
Trustee Blue?
Yes.
Mayor Pop?
Yes. Yes.
So for the applicants, the authorization has been given to the attorney to draw the ordinance up. It will appear on our next board meeting. It does not mean that the variance has been approved
Correct.
at this point. Our next board meeting is August the 8th, same time, same location, and at that time, it will be on the agenda for the vote of the Board of Trustees.
Okay, we'll move on to the clerk's report. Tanisha?
Thank you, Mr. Pop. I just wanted to share with the residents, I received an email from the South Suburban Mayors and Managers Association to share a Six Flags discount with the residents. So nearly 50% off, only $39.50, and that's for July 27th through the 29th or August 3rd through the 5th. I will be posting flyers out in the vestibule on the walls, as well as posting in the community page on Facebook as well. End of report.
Okay, under my report, I just have a short letter I'd like to read to you. It's always nice to hear favorable things from the village, that we're doing our job. It said, "Dear Mr. Pop, on July 19th, 2018, I was involved in a traffic incident on Court Street in your village. A truck going east was carrying an oversized load and clipped the wires on an electric pole in front of my car that was heading west. The pole cracked and the wires fell, one on my car, and I was told later on the guardrail close by. Many landed on the chaser car that was following the truck, and also I believe some fell on a nearby yard. To say the least, the incident was unexpected and definitely unnerving, as I did not know if these wires were live. My reason for writing to you is to express my appreciation for the prompt and professional action taken by all the Monee departments that responded to this potentially dangerous situation. First response personnel and the police department were quickly notified, immediately cleared the road, contacted the utility company, and continually updated the plan of action to us two drivers involved. By the time I had been checked out at by the EMTs, and given my police statement, I was back on the road in a very short time. I also want to thank the DPW personnel. Everyone was courteous that I interacted with that day, and I want to let you know that the fine workers that are employed by this village of Monee are commended, should be commended for their swift action in this emergency situation. I don't really get to read things like this very often, okay, and I wanted to share that with you, that EMA's on the job, our police department, DPW, we're doing our jobs as best we can.
Well done.
With that, we'll move to the administrator's report. David?
Thank you, Mayor. First item on the agenda for your consideration this evening, item H1, is a board action request having to do with a TIF 5 budget amendment. And if the board recalls, at the July 11th meeting, a board approval was given to transfer $2 million from TIF District Number 3 to TIF District Number 5. This action requires a budget amendment to TIF District Number 5 as follows. On the revenue line item labeled transfer from TIF Number 3 in the amount of $2 million, and on the expense line item labeled TIF eligible expenses increased by $2 million for a total expenditure amount of $3,081,282.62. The action requested is approval of this proposed budget amendment.
Could I have a motion on that, please?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second, okay. Discussion. Anybody have any discussion on this? Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Razik,
Yes.
Trustee Udris,
Yes.
Trustee Blue,
Yes.
Trustee Horn.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Next item, H2 on the agenda, is a presentation. We have Mr. Ernie Lopez from Republic Services, who I'd like to ask him to step forward. He's going to make a presentation on recycling, and Republic Services is our current contractor for refuse and recycling and so forth. And Mr. Lopez has asked for some time in order to make a presentation. So if you'll bear with me 1 second.
All right. And before you start, Mr. Lopez, I just want to say we had a lengthy meeting with him prior to this and suggested he ought to do this so the public realizes what's happening.
Again, my name is Ernie Lopez. I appreciate the moment to present this to the rest of the board. I want to thank the Mayor Pop, Village Administrator Dave Wallace, and current Board of Trustees for this opportunity tonight. What I'm going to talk about is the current recycling market and how it affects your constituents, the village of Monee, going forward. I think it's very important that we communicate. That's what I do. I want to make sure that we communicate to all the residents and municipalities that we service. Currently, right now, the market, we all know that it was a thriving, strong market, but that's changed now as of late. Recycling is currently broken. And the two gentlemen that you see up on the board there, Pete Keller, he's our VP Recycling Sustainability. He kind of manages and kind of finds outlets for us on where to take this stuff. And Richard Copeland gives me the tools and resources I need to be successful to make sure that we offer the services needed and provided by the municipalities that we service. The second page is nothing more but the evolving ton, and why we want to talk about that. If you look on the bottom light blue corner, that's the current trash total. They're saying that by 2020, there's not going to be that much of a variance. It's going to be pretty much stagnant. But if you look right above there in the gray, 69 million tons in 2020, you're going to see a slight increase. So people want to recycle. They want to do the right thing. We understand how important it is, keep our landfills going and doing the right thing. The next page is a poll question. Just think about what your constituents think about the recycling program currently that they have. Residents are passionate about recycling, expanding recycling collection to new streams and willing to pay for the service. Is it B, interested in recycling but need to educate and understand why it should be not free? Or is it C, residents not brought in yet and willing to pay more for recycling risks that they were rather in the program? Again, it's very, very important that we get this information out, and that's what I want to do tonight. The recycling life cycle, again, some of the factors driving costs up are participation rates, higher participation. You know, we try to get people involved to make sure they're doing the right thing. Pounds currently being set out play a big role in the service cost per household. Commodity mix, changes in the stream can impact processing speed. I'll get more and more into it a little bit as we go on. And the contamination drives additional direct costs. Again, what I like to tell everybody, anything can be recycled, but what can we recycle at the items that you bring out to the curb, and that's the stuff that we process. Again, commodity value, direct costs, and you kind of see the life cycle. Again, the residents, they consume it, they bring the card out to the curb, we collect it, we try to process. In this process, there is a waste stream, and again, the next step is to resell it to markets, and then they produce it, and again, there's an additional waste stream with that now. Trends in the market, glass, I can see that going away. We currently have it right now. We have some outlets for it, but I kind of see it going away. Glass has a negative value in most market, but we're able to support it. You can kind of see right now we have to pay $10 a ton, but we're doing the right thing. There is no market for that. And also, the corrugated cardboard has decreased price in the last 5 years. There's been a 40% reduction in commodity value there. So the market's changing, the recycling trend is changing, so we have to adapt. As we go forward, some of the trends include the newspaper. Everybody used to read a newspaper. Now, to get their news, they watch TV, they get their iPad, little messages on their phones and so forth. So you can kind of see where the volume's gone down there from 18 million tons in 2000 to now about 2 million, in 2015. Also, the lightweight packaging that you see now, everybody's trying to save on freight costs. So they're looking for little different avenues to save money when it comes to shipping. So you see the lightweight and limited in markets. You see the bigger Tide bottle what they used to have. Now they're going to the pods, a little smaller, so forth. And then just continue to go through the lightweight process. This is very alarming right here. It's the lightweighting materials. Everybody knows, again, in 2000, it took 48,000 plastic bottles to equate to a ton. Now to get that same ton, we have to work 2 times harder to get 92,000 plastic bottles to equate to that same ton. So what's that mean? It requires processing more materials to yield a ton of marketable commodity. So it's costing money. You can kind of see that. You can grab a plastic bottle and do what? Just squish it now, right? So as we move on, China's sword. We call it China's sword. What I want to explain to you, starting March 1st of this year, they announced efforts, China announced efforts to clean up the country, which includes dramatic changes for acceptance of criteria of imported recyclables. China imports 40% of all U.S. recycling. It all goes there. You know, they have the resources, they have the manpower, they have the machinery and so forth. We put it in a container box, it goes to port, they kind of looked at it and said, okay, go on. Well, they put these new guidelines in place starting March 1st. Contamination rate used to be at 3%. They would just take that. Now they said, nope, it's now at 0.5%. That's how important this is. They want to do what they can to clean up their efforts in their country, so they put the tougher guidelines on us. Also, with that being said, all the stuff we sent out, China says, you know what? We don't want mixed paper anymore. That accounted for 20% of the volume that we sent over there. So what do we have to do? We have to find different outlets for that. And that's the gentleman, excuse me, on the front 2 pages who've gone throughout Asia, Europe, and so forth, and even here throughout the U.S. to find outlets in a better waste stream so we don't not dependent on China going forward. The current markets in China's sword, kind of see in 2016 for mixed paper, we were getting $77.50 a ton. So that would kind of offset the cost of having a driver out there, the new carts, the fuel, the insurance, the benefits for those drivers and so forth. So we kind of, you know, we found that it was important that we had to do it and we want to do it. But you kind of see where the market's gone when March 1st took effect. China put the ban in. It's currently at $5 a ton. And that's what we're getting, and that's what we're struggling with. As we continue to move forward, what kind of impact has it had? As a result, some facilities are unable to handle the daily material volume. Again, because we have to do what? We're putting more guys on that sorting line to avoid the contamination, because when we send those containers to port, we want to make sure that we're in compliance. Because if we don't, they're going to reject the load. They're going to say it's contaminated. They don't even want it, so we might as well just take it to the landfill at that point. Again, we're exploring investments in newer, more accurate sorting technology. Again, Public Services has acquired 26 facilities throughout the Midwest called MRFs, Municipality Recycling Facilities. And we know how important it is to recycle and do the right thing. We're investing a lot of money. We want to continue this process of recycling. Again, keep it away from the landfill. The current effects on recycling business, again, collection prices does not cover our costs, unable to subsidize from commodity sales from the China sword. Again, the lightweighting material that we have and the lack of public education contamination drives additional costs. I know I talked to the mayor and Administrator Wallace. We are working on a more viable information to get out to your constituents, make sure that they're well informed of what can be recycled and what can't. And to work with your ID department as well as your public works to make sure they have the ability to get it out on their billing notices and so forth. So we're willing to absorb some of that cost if need be. Again, we want to make sure we communicate to the residents of Monee. Again, the new recycling model going forward, again, the cost of recycling collection, what I talked about earlier. Cost to provide trucks, driver, container, and scheduled collection, service on contracted basis. Excuse me. Collect material, transport it to the processing facility. Again, we go through the processing, then we sort everything out, get the contamination out of there, and eventually go to market for commodity sales. Again, the monthly collection charge plus the net processing fees of commodity prices minus processing fees and residual costs. So again, we're running into a lot of that. When I talk about contamination, you're looking about the average communities anywhere from 20 to 30% contamination. They have a tendency to throw, garden hoses in there, yard waste in the recycling bin, plastic bags, and even diapers. Some of the examples I like to use, you order a pizza from your favorite spot. You think, oh my God, this is recyclable. This is all, cardboard. But when you open it, what happens? You got cheese on it, you got oils and grease from the box. So in reality, this box is contaminated. So that's not recyclable material. Again, we want to avoid that contamination. You think about, a tin can tomato paste, It's pretty thick. There's a lot of stuff usually left over. You don't get everything. You throw that in there just like that, contaminates the rest of the load. So I can go 3 blocks, 4 blocks, picking up perfectly clean material, but if I get to that one resident who continues to put this stuff out, put out the other stuff, it contaminates the whole load. So you see why public education is very, very important as we continue to go forward. On the next page, again, long-term assessment of accepted materials. We talked glass. I can see that going away. In fact, I just got notice on Monday there was I don't know what city it was, but it was in California. They're no longer doing away with plastic. It's not recyclable. Again, they're finding it's much cheaper due to the lightweighting materials. The process takes that much, double the process to get a ton. They're finding it's a lot more inexpensive to make virgin plastic opposed to recycling it. So they did away with the plastic program there. Again, lack of in-markets have a negative recycling value. Again, as a municipality, we need to shift the programs to focus on sustainable materials management based on views. That's the stuff we want to make sure that's at the curb. What is clean, what we take, and so forth. So, again, some of the next steps we need to take, price increase needed to adjust shortfall due to collection costs no longer covered by commodity revenues. Again, we're looking for your support, so forth. I think you all have a copy of that the request we put in. We're looking for an additional 54 cents a home for processing fee. But again, I would hope that you would take that in consideration. I know that you're not going to vote on it, but I placed a card in front of everybody. If they have any questions or concerns, I'll be more than happy to answer them and so forth. If you think of something, we do have to implement a public education program to inform residents what to recycle and how to recycle, clean up contamination and waste stream. That's very, very important. We're fortunate enough here in the village of Monee where we take all our items direct to the processing center. We don't bring it to a transfer. We don't dump it. We don't mix it with any other municipality. It's strictly residents of Monee. And that's kind of the feedback we're getting in regards to contamination. We have to move to a new recycling model either in the next contract or via amendment to the current contract. And that's what I'm talking about tonight in regards to that processing fee. Again, today, just based on today's information, your best thoughts, again, you kind of look at that. You agree that recycling is a business model should change to ensure a durable and sustainable future? Or is it, I have no idea, the public education plays such a big role and we'll work to improve that in the community? Or C, I feel A and B are very important and we want to work on that. Again, I'm working with the village administrator, the mayor, IT, and public works to get that information out. What I've done is I put down a little copy, and I've kind of, I think I might have sent this to you. I'm sorry, just an example of what we're going to put on that. And I'll get that to everybody a little later, but on what can we recycle and what can't. I think the more pictures you have, it's a lot easier. People kind of look at pictures opposed to reading what's good, what's bad, and so forth. So I think it's very important. I think it's good. We'll get that out to everybody. So again, that's it tonight. I would hope you consider the processing fee. And again, I thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Any questions?
I have a question for you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez, for coming in. That was very informative. I consider myself a fairly responsible recycler, but I learned a lot tonight. So plainly, we've got a long way to go. The information that you've gathered and shared with us today, is that from your company's perspective, or are you seeing the same, are you getting the same information from other companies like Allied and some of the other lines?
Well, this is a worldwide problem, especially across the USA, where 40% of all recycling imports go to China. I did send some information. I'll be more than happy to get that out. I presented the mayor and village administrator a Wall Street Journal article, a Bloomberg News article, as well as the National Waste article. And I'll make sure that you get that one, because that's a very good one to read. It's a 2-page article. It's kind of wraps everything really simple and tell you what we need to do going forward.
Yeah, we'd appreciate that because we all vote on that, so we'd like that information.
Well, good. I'll make sure that you get it.
And is there a recycling association that you all belong to? All I'm just wondering if there's a way you can use this information to lobby in Springfield to get a more incentivized recycling program.
Well, we do have people that, are part of the legislative team, going out there and consultants trying to get value information. We got the e-waste program, electronics waste and so forth, and they realize the importance. Again, we're currently trying to educate them on what's currently happening in the market and so forth. So hopefully they get a better understanding too as well. But again, I want to make sure that you, as a trustee, member of this community, representing your constituents, know about what's happening out there in the recycling market. Yes,
I have
sir.
a question for you, Mr. Lopez. So are you familiar with our contract we have with your company?
Yes, sir.
So I believe it was implemented 2 to 3 years ago?
It would have been 13. It expires in June 30th of 23.
Okay, so what's that, about 5 years?
Yeah, it has 5
Already,
years.
time flies.
It does.
So it's a 10-year contract.
Right.
And is there any build-outs in the contract to handle these price increases? I guess my question is, why are you coming to us now with, I mean, when you put together a 10-year contract, you kind of anticipate your cost, your increases and stuff, and roll that into the price.
Mm-hmm.
Why is this coming out now?
But again, the market's changed as of recently. It was March 1st. They come on the end of 2017, saying they're going to implement these rules and regulations. China put it in effect. Again, we are going to honor that contract. We realize that we do have a contract, but we are looking for a processing fee, and that's, more or less the processing fee and the education portion tonight I wanted to make sure to address.
So let me ask this question, follow-up question. What are the ramifications of not approving this amendment?
We're like I said, we are going to honor that contract.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to say now, you mentioned 54 cents.
Mm-hmm.
So that's actually 27 cents a month, correct?
No, 54 cents a month per home.
month?
A month.
So-
You have 2,000, so you're looking about just over $6 a year for additional processing fee.
Okay.
So
And I know that Doug Horn, our trustee, asked the correct question. I knew we had a contract with you that gives an automatic increase per year,
mhm.
but I also realize that as a business, your people make a little more money. The trucks get a little older. You have to factor all those things in there. So I appreciate your information you gave us. China really hurt you bad from the meeting we had with you.
Yep.
So anybody else have any other questions or comments?
Again, thank you very much for your time. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're just.
Next agenda.
Yeah, next agenda.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes, sir.
oh, there you are, sorry. Yep, just for information, this will appear on the August 8th agenda for further consideration of the board, but they need some time to digest.
No, not a problem. Thank you again.
Perfect.
Good night.
Yes. Thank you. And, Mr. Mayor, item H3 on my agenda, if you will give me just one moment here, I can prep for that, I hope. And it's gonna be,
While David's getting set for that, I just want to mention to you that we were all given this piece of paper which shows what's acceptable recycle items and what is not. I'm going to have our machine run some copies off on this, and if you come to Village Hall, you can pick up one of them, because I know I'm surprised. No plastic grocery bags are allowed in recycling. No light bulbs. No batteries. I've been known to throw a battery in the recycle. I thought it was all right. My point is that it's a good information. It's simple to read. It's not a whole lot of items on it, so we'll make that available to you.
I'm putting it on the website so we don't make more.
How about that? Who's the smart one out there? Who is that? Very good, sir. I'm a talk to me on the phone, not an email guy, but I'm working on it, okay? But you're right. We can do that too.
Same way, Mayor. I'm
Hey.
not big on technology, but.
Yeah, but you just covered it, didn't you? Very good, sir. Thank you. David?
Mr. Mayor, one comment I would like to make is Mr. Lopez referenced that he's working to provide us some materials for distribution. We have an upcoming newsletter. We're definitely working with him to get the proper information in that newsletter. This probably by the end of the week is our deadline, and then there's some prep time in there, so it'll be out in mass.
Forgot about that.
Yes, sir. So item H3 on the agenda actually is just a follow-up on behalf of the zoning board, actually the Plan Commission. There was a project introduced at the Plan Commission level by Bluestone developers, and Bluestone has made offered up a proposed site plan here of a fueling center at the northeast corner of Monee Manhattan Road and Ridgeland Avenue. A couple of comments to be made here are simply that, if I can find my notes, that would be good. Are simply that if you recall, Bluestone was before the board previously in an effort to relocate the ingress, egress, the access points on Ridgeland Avenue. They were at one point closer to Monee Manhattan Road, and since this board directed them to go back and to the drawing board, those access points have been moved further to the north, which actually takes the access points out of the stacking lanes for the proposed Ridgeland Avenue improvement there. So that is a movement that was made on their part. Additionally, you might recall there were 25 parking spaces for semi-tractor trailers, and I believe that's been reduced to 12 here. So that is a movement that was made on their part as well. And then if you note on the bottom of this site plan, there is for access to and from Monee Manhattan Road, there is a right-in, right-out access point. Bluestone will be responsible for providing a turn lane along Monee Manhattan, which is a county road, to make a right so that westbound traffic can make a right and get into their facility. Once you get into the facility, you would have the opportunity to either peel off if you're an automobile and get into the auto sections here, or you can go straight through to the truck section, which is in the north side of the facility here. So this is just an overview. It's a draft site plan, but there has been some movement on their part, and it's important that we show the movement that has been taken. One additional point is, if you'll note to the left of the building, that they have slated there a double lane drive-through for a convenient food service that would be on the end of the building there. So with that being said, I'd like to move forward and show the board and the audience the elevations, and again, these are draft elevations that were provided to us. This would be the front elevation of the building, the proposed facility, and you could see on the left that little overhang that would be the proposed drive-through windows and so forth. You have a restaurant, indoor portion of the restaurant of that same, which facilitates the drive-through. And then the main entrance is the Thornton's, which is a convenient type of facility, store there. And so if we move up to the, you have both the left elevation and the right elevation. These would be the ends of it. You can see the double drive-through window on the left, and then on the right, it's basically just a block wall there. They don't have any facilities going through. And then last but not least is the rear elevation. The Thornton's convenient store allows rear elevation for fueling truckers to come in and either pay their bill or pick up some supplies or whatever they might need in the facility. And on the far right are the service entrances and doors for the restaurant portion of that. If I might go back to, I'd like to note on the Bluestone site plan, in the lower right corner here is an outlot of approximately 1 acre, a little over an acre, and that is for a future development of a restaurant. And their indication at this point is to attempt to facilitate what is commonly called or referred to as a fast casual restaurant. That would be along the lines of a Panera Bread, things of that nature. So there is some future consideration to take place there, but not currently under this development. So with that being said, I just would like to ask the board if they have any questions. Just as it's before us right now, I do have some additional information before taking questions, if I might. They are proposing a 24-hour operation. They're projected at a gasoline at 250,000 gallons monthly, diesel at 500,000 gallons monthly, and they would look at a spring of 2019 as a start of construction should this project move forward. That's all I have at this point, Mayor.
Any questions from the trustees you might have?
I have one question. Was there any discussion about what type of lighting they're talking about on this?
At this point, there was no discussion on that, as these are draft elevations, but we do have lighting covered in our code that they would have to pass code for the proper lighting there. Normally, we, other than street lighting, we require cutoff lighting so that there's not a glare and things of that nature.
I had a question, Mr. Wallace. So I was at the P&Z meeting last Wednesday as well, and I recall a lot of our residents on the west side of 57 were very concerned. Their concern, I believe, to summarize it, was the traffic over at that end of town on those streets, Monee, Manhattan, Ridgeland, and so forth. What is Thornton proposing as far as improve the road infrastructure over there?
Might I ask what road infrastructure you'd be referring to, Monee, Manhattan, or Ridgeland?
Both, yes.
Okay. As previously we were able to see on the site plan, they're proposing a right-in turn lane for deceleration and right-in off of the Monee Manhattan Road. So if you are westbound on Monee Manhattan, you would have access into their facility, both for autos and vehicle. If you were coming westbound, you would have to make a left turn and head north onto Ridgeland, and there are two separate entrances there, each of which is delineated for specific traffic, one being autos, the other being truck traffic. Ridgeland Avenue improvements, basically Thornton's would have to tie into Ridgeland, but those improvements on Ridgeland Avenue are currently being handled under an ongoing project.
So is there a turning lane on Ridgeland into Thornton's?
There will be a turning lane on Ridgeland into Thornton's. That is depicted right about here, and
Okay.
also right about here for truck traffic.
Okay. All
And
right.
they will make those improvements.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm sorry, but that's what I meant by tying into the existing Ridgeland.
Right. Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a couple of questions. I have one for the chief. Do you see this impacting the manpower that we currently have? Do you see us needing more manpower to help police a facility of this size?
I don't see that I don't see that it will affect our manpower issues. It's a heavily traveled area now due to the proximity of Amazon, and certain times of day we're in the area. So additional traffic, I think, will be alleviated by some of the design of the right on-course and off-course turns, so it won't affect us. It won't cause additional manpower for our needs at that intersection.
Awesome, thank you. And I do have one other question for the mayor and Mr. Wallace. With a project of this size, what's in it for us?
Well, you have substantial revenue potential from sales tax in
Right.
both fuel and other products that are in there. If in fact they are successful in securing a fast casual restaurant that becomes more of a destination spot. So I'm not here before this board promoting or
No, I
going
understand.
against.
Yeah.
I'm merely bringing forward the information as an introduction of a new project. Fortunately, or previously, Bluestone was before the board. That's not normal course, but it's because we reached an impasse, and the Sayers, the authorities sit at this table and not with staff, and
Right.
that's why they came before the actual introduction. So this is the formal introduction both to the Plan Commission, Zoning Board, and as well as to the Village Board. It's kind of the official introduction, because they will be back before the Plan Commission, Zoning Board for some necessary amendments and things of that nature.
Okay, so are there any other road projects that we can connect to this that they might be able to help us pay for?
Not that's directly relational to this project, because the Ridgeland Avenue is already taken care of as far as the reconstruction, and the county highway is already taken care of, with the exception of the requirements that are made for right turn lane, in the right in and right out aspect of it.
Right.
That kind of falls under county jurisdiction. They have reviewed that, and that's why this is draft, because county might come back with some additional requirements that they would have to tweak on this site plan. But this gives you an overall picture, and that's the only intent that they had here.
Okay, thank you very much.
And may I say, Janet, a little bit in response, and for everyone, to your question, another part of it is that you must give Thornton's and these companies credit that they don't come in unless they know more than we do about the possibility of the traffic and what they're going to accomplish with this. They've done studies. It's just like right now, and I'm not going to talk about a grocery store. I shouldn't even say that word, but we need traffic, we need people, but we're working on it, But this is a proposal by a company that does their studies, does their homework, and apparently they see the need for that here, that they can pump that kind of fuel.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, in closing, I would like to comment on Trustee Horn's remarks regarding traffic. He's absolutely correct that that was a huge concern, and affiliated with this development also is a traffic study that they have to provide that is in the what I would call the final stages of being completed before it can be presented to us. So there's a lot of different aspects that go on. I just want the board to know this is preliminary. It's just an introduction, and we'll follow due course. Thank you very much. And so last item that I have on my agenda is item H4, which is a dissolution of Eastcom. I apologize for the misprint there. Eastcom intergovernmental agreement. And attached, you'll find a resolution authorizing the execution of an intergovernmental agreement to effect the dissolution of Eastern Will County Communications Center, commonly known as Eastcom. That would be where our police, public safety, police, fire, emergency management used to be dispatched from, and along with an actual agreement that is attached as well. Since the state of Illinois has forced further consolidation of dispatch centers throughout the state, Eastcom has become part of Laraway Communications Center for the dispatching of public safety entities. Therefore, the attached documents will essentially dissolve Eastcom and relieve the village of any future liabilities. And the action that I'm requesting this evening is passage of that resolution. Additionally, I would like to say that each of the communities that were members, well, they actually are members of Eastcom, will have to pass these. And what will essentially happen is that the police departments are dispatched by Laraway Communications. The fire departments and other emergency management facilities are dispatched by Laraway. However, the fire departments on the eastern side here will form a new intergovernmental agreement, of which the village of Monee will not be needed to participate in. It's for fire service, upkeep of their radio systems out here, things of that nature. So it's a long, arduous task that we have gone through here. Eastcom has served the eastern portion of Will County very favorably, and it's government that requires some of this consolidation, and so I have the resolution before the board tonight for action, should you desire that.
Any discussion on this?
I do have a question.
I'm sorry. Do we need a motion on this first?
It's entirely up to you.
I
Sure.
think we should.
Okay.
I need a motion.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Second?
I'll second.
Discussion. Thank you, Tom.
So I was very sad, and we've had discussions about this, Mr. Wallace, about Eastcom going away, as it were, because the dispatchers at Eastcom really knew the area and sort of the different villages and had a good feel for what was going on. So my question is, with the new dispatch center called Laraway, right? Is that the name of it?
Yes, sir.
So I know there was some problems with the implementation and sort of the startup with the new dispatchers and not knowing the area. Because I remember even myself calling 911 and being very, very frustrated by their by how the experience went. Has that improved over the last 6 months?
I will say that it has proved, I can defer to the chief in a moment here, but it has improved. Both police and fire have operating committees, and they meet on a regular basis to discuss problems. Those problems are then forwarded up the chain for resolution. So I do know that problems did exist, and many have been corrected. I also know, in all honesty, that there are still existing problems that need to be addressed. And my comment on that is that technology is great, but just as technology has a tendency to isolate us as individuals, it drives us to our phone, it drives us indoors. It isolates our community in this situation because we have the ability through technology to dispatch 10 miles away, 100 miles away, or 500 miles away. It doesn't matter, but you do lose that personal touch.
Right.
And that's what we have to suffer with. In closing, I'm confident that that over time, through the proper use of CAD and the proper information in CAD, that dispatch personnel becomes more familiar and thus much more efficient than they do now. Chief, did you have any comment on that at all?
No, I think you pretty much hit the high points. It's a learning lesson. This is the consolidation of several communication centers where we went from having maybe 13 employees at EastCom that ran the radio. We are now in with over 30 police agencies, and there are 59 personnel assigned to these radio councils. So it makes a big difference as far as their knowledge of the area, and we address life safety issues first at every meeting, and I think that we are making progress and going in the right direction, and I'm fairly confident that we're doing a good job on a daily basis.
So, two follow-ups. Is there any assets of EastCom that are being disposed of?
Yes, there is.
Where are they going to?
They will, in a proportionate share of what we, as a member of EastCom, paid in on a monthly basis or in over a period of time, we will get that same percentage back. Currently, there is existing $300,000 in excess funding. We will get a percentage of that back. 85%, they're dispersing 85% of those funds now as a step-down process in case there's some outstanding bills and things that need to be taken care of. And then ultimately, we, along with every other agency or community, will receive the final payout.
My last question is this new agency, is it actually saving the taxpayers any money?
I can only speak that from our first year, from its inception, we are paying less per month for dispatch services than we were previously. Will it continue to be that? I think time has to pass before we actually understand, because everything was a projected budget, and we haven't, been through a year cycle yet, at the very least.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
One thing, the consolidation was consolidated of 31 agencies, just for that number.
Any other questions? If not, roll call, please.
Trustee Udris?
Yes.
Trustee Blue?
Yes.
Trustee Horn?
Yes.
Trustee Razik?
Yes.
That resolution will be 2018-1.
Is that it, David?
That concludes my report. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Administrator Wallace. We'll move on to the officials report, Public Works. DJ, I see you're here. Is there anything exciting going on?
Exciting.
I know there is. Everywhere you go, there's construction.
There is, everywhere. Thank you. Good evening, Board. Main Street storm drainage is back in full force as we were reported last board meeting. NICOR has made those service adjustments to the residents that were in conflict, and they are full speed ahead over there at that station. The Route 50 water main loop, that was an approved project, has been completed and is through its first round of it passed its pressure testing, and it's through its first round of chlorination testing. Once we get those back, we'll get a second round. Once we get 2 back-to-back approvals, that water main will then be flushed, put online, and then we can do service taps for the businesses that were proposed along that route to have water service, and will help provide better quality water for the new daycare that will be coming in the old docks area. Sheets property that is now on there, because that was a dead-end loop or dead-end service that wasn't getting that clean regenerated water, and then for the businesses along the east side of the road. So that is in full force. Egyptian Trail is on its wind down right now. The administrator and myself are working on final payout requests and submittals and things of that nature The roundabout is completed. There's a few remaining punch list items that have to be addressed, that they are finishing up, sod and various discrepancies. But other than that, for the most part, that is pretty much completed, the way you see now. And there's other projects in the works. The Lynn water main, the contractor, we've had our pre-con meeting for that. That will provide a new water main to residents that are fed off a shared 3/4 or 1-inch line. About 7 homes are affected by that, so that'll, you hate to be the end home with the pressure loss when everybody wakes up in the morning. So that water main, the contractors notified me, will start mid to end of next week. Notices have been given out to residents along the Locust, Oak, and the affected residents on Lynn that will be getting tied in to that water main, as well as postings and splash page notifications for anybody who is concerned about that. So basically what that's going to do is the main part of Main Street, where the first tap is going to come into, is going to be right by the post office. So we've notified the post office, and we'll just urge residents to use caution around that area. They're going to make that connection and move across that street swiftly and fast. That is going to be the first part of that tie-in, so they can get that done and get that road open and cleared while they're cutting through to do that tap. So as residents come in and out of that post office area, please use caution. Please watch the detour signs. There's a difference between road closed and road closed to through traffic. Know that difference. Don't use it to drive through when it's road closed. Don't drive around barricades, things of that nature. Don't go into oncoming traffic. Dangers can happen. But as far as watching the construction work out there, they're trying to work as fast as possible, and that's about it for right now, I guess. There's always stuff going on. So mosquito spraying weekly has been good for the public health sector. Hopefully that education has been out there and the mosquito counts have been down. We will be back out there again, weather permitting, this Thursday and Friday. And a report?
Thank you.
Unless you have any questions. Take it.
Thank you, David. We'll move on to Parks and Recs. Trustee Horn.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Last week, we had a job fair, which was held at Fireman's Park. 16 employers came out and met with 52 job seekers. The Workforce Division of Will County put that event together, and they were very pleased with the event, and they plan on hosting another one by the end of the year. Coming up is the British Soccer Camp on Monday, August 6 through 10 for ages 3 to 14. And there's a Battle of the Bands on August 12th. Is that a Saturday? I believe that is. Winner of the Battle of the Bands gets to play at Fall Fest. Contact the Park and Recreation Department if you are interested. And speaking of Fall Fest, that is coming up very quickly. September 7, 8, and 9, we are in need of volunteers to help with this community event. Working the ticket booth, helping organize the craft and vendor show, setting up the parade, and more. If anyone has some time to give, we would be very appreciative. And for any information regarding programs or events, please contact the Parks and Recreation Department. End of report.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I had one comment to make on
Go
parks.
right ahead.
I can't remember if we've met since we had the Kids' Day. Did we meet since then? I can't remember. But I did spend some time down there with different groups, and it was an outstanding day. It was great to see so many of our families come out for that day. No money exchanging hands. That was awesome. It was a free day for our community. I know some of the folks said they didn't seem to get good attendance, but when I spoke to others, they said it was outstanding. So I guess it evened itself out in the end. I just wanted to say thank you for such a wonderful day on behalf of our residents, for sure. This is one of the community building events that we do very, very well. And I know if that day was a reflection of how the community feels, we'd certainly want to continue that.
Thank you, Janet.
Thank you.
I did have one more comment, and Trustee Uterus reminded me of it. We are going to have a Parks and Recreation Committee meeting Monday, August 6th, from 6:30 to 7:30. Monday, August 6th, from 6:30 to 7:30. One of the items on the agenda, we will be discussing the our ponds in town and fishing on ponds and the question of, do we want to regulate that? How do we regulate it? And so on. Now, that's the end of the report.
Okay, we'll move on to finance. Trustee Blue?
Thank you, sir. In an effort to continue to be transparent, Darrell is educating me on all of the financial stuff that goes on in the village. And I can tell you that man is a genius. He knows what's going on, and he can explain it in my kind of terms. So thank you, Darrell, for that. As of the month ending June 30th, our general fund expenses were below what was budgeted, which is projected to be just over 16%. I thought that was great in comparison to the next sentence, which says our sales tax revenue has fallen below expectation. That could be cyclical. There could be a million reasons for that. But as a householder, I'm glad that we're spending less than we're bringing in. So that's a very good thing, right? And for the month of June, our total revenue for the village was $3.5 million. Thank you to all the property tax owners for that. And I'm including myself in that too. And also for the month of June, our total village expense was $651,000. So that's our report from our finance department. End of report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd just like the public to know that we try to have all the department heads here in case there are questions, and I'm not sure why Diana is not here, but she is over there. I look pretty good too, Diana. So they're all here. We got Department of Public Works, we have Building Services, Economic Development, Finance Director, and Diana. Sorry, Diana. Okay, we'll move on to Economic Development. Trustee Yurtis.
Okay. Happy to report that the market demand for industrial development in our town remains extremely high, and that is keeping our economic development department nice and busy. Additionally, they are going to be meeting with the project management team from the Northern Builders next week. I expect to receive a plan submitted in the following weeks after that. This is for the Monee Venture project over on Cleveland Avenue that we voted on back in June. I do have my committee together finally. I'm working on some dates so that we can get a committee meeting going. One of the first things that we're going to be addressing is the transient merchant licensing and get that completed. End of report.
Thank you. We'll move on to Building Services. Trustee Razik.
Janet wasn't aware that we had a committee meeting last Wednesday after P&Z for chickens. Doug Horn and I, we discussed it, and was it sent over to Larry already for him to write it up, or
Sent over right now.
sent over right now?
Receipt acknowledged.
All right, here you go, Jan. We basically discussed people can have up to 8 chickens and what they can and cannot do, and what rules are set forth in the ordinance. You'll see it probably next week.
Try to get into Mike a little deeper, Anthony.
Yeah, sorry about that. And then I got no report, but I just want to let the public know and all the trustees. Next Wednesday, I'm going to be hosting a committee meeting to discuss and set forth a golf cart ordinance so we can write it up and so we can hand it to Larry at 6:30 p.m. right here in the boardroom next Wednesday. So,
End of report.
end of report.
Okay.
And for the record, that meeting will be open to the public too. So if the public has any input on what they, about the golf court ordinance, you're more than welcome to come. End of report.
I don't see anything on attorney's report.
No, sir.
Okay. We'll move on to old business.
We don't have public safety.
I'm sorry.
Public safety.
Oh, I'm sorry, Scott. If you wish to say something on public safety, I guess you're the man.
Thank you, sir. Couple follow-ups just to match some local inquiries. First off, Trustee Raisik, I'd just like you to know we ain't chasing chickens.
In a
so-
golf cart.
Some other follow-ups
In
on...
the police golf cart, right?
I'll
And
take
the
a golf
report.
cart, no chickens. A couple of follow-ups on some more serious matters. On July 18th, we had an operation where a young lady was charged with soliciting a sex act with an undercover officer at the Massage Works. And we've had some inquiries about enforcement of regulations through the village and business ordinances or business licensing. Just to let you know, the young lady was charged and the owner of the business was cited under a ordinance violations for nuisance ordinance. Until these cases are adjudicated, the reporting and the follow-ups through the mayor's office and through the administrator will probably take place at that point. And correct me if I'm making any errors on that. So just so you know that the village is looking into the business license aspect of the criminal activity that was occurring there. Also, in follow-up to the May 25th shooting incident, we've been receiving several inquiries about civil action that may involve eviction or movement of the tenants where the party occurred. As I stated before, the police department has no input or knowledge of any civil action. We are not a part of that. I will tell you that we have received some inquiries for information that would be indicative of civil activity occurring outside of our boundaries. But that's all I have on that. Any questions? Thank you, sir. End of report.
Thank you, Chief. We'll move on to old business. Creamery lease.
Mr. Mayor, the creamery lease has been tabled previously to the August 8th meeting, and that was at the request of the Historical Society. So we'll take it up next meeting.
Okay. The McCorkle Outlet proposed building of homes, which was tabled from the June 27th meeting.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I would suggest that remain a tabled item. The only report I can give is that Attorney Gruchevsky, myself, Mr. Contorno and yourself met where we have laid out a lot of options, have refined several of those options, and actually I spoke with Mr. Contorno today. We will be providing a draft framework to him in an effort to bring resolution to the situation that's at hand. But I actually have nothing else to report on that at this time.
Okay, we'll move on to new business. Is there any new business from any of the trustees?
I have a question actually for Mr. Wallace. We have a couple of we approved a couple of open positions in the village. One was for our building commissioner's assistant, the other one's for part-time accountant. I wondered if you could let us know when we will start, unless you already have started to fill those positions.
Yes, the building department secretary position was one that was originally advertised as an exempt position, and since that time, we don't believe that is going to be the case. So I have taken those applicants that fit that position, separated them, and will be contacting them to see if there's still an interest, even though it is not an exempt position at that point. With regards to the part-time accountant, I see now that Trustee Blue is finance. Daryl, who is finance director, has a direct pipeline, and I see that, and I'm saying that in jest, that Daryl and I have spoken on several occasions, and the bottom line is that we will have that developed, the job description fully developed, and the position advertisement probably ready prior to the next board meeting for placement on our splash page.
Awesome.
So you can look for that to appear.
Awesome. Thank you.
You bet.
Any other new business? If not, open to the public on non-agenda items only. Please step forward if you have any comments.
Hello, my name's Paul Telly, 26624 South Anna. I just wanted to restate my opposition to this, the proposed truck stop. It appears to me that it's plugging away forward. You know, the only problem is the traffic. I mean, the discussion has been, you know, the P&Z board, I was at the P&Z board, is the traffic problem. That's not the only problem. The problem is whether we should have another truck stop here at all, you know, and that's not being discussed, the way I see it. And Mayor, with all due respect, I understand Thornton's. You say Thornton's is really, you know, Thornton's is here to make a buck. That's their only purpose.
Sure.
And they don't care. They could give a frog's fat rear end about the how it affects this town. They want a buck, and they don't live here. We live here, and it's once again we want to attract people here. This is not going to do it. So I think we had to have more discussion whether we should have it here at all, regardless of the traffic problem, whether we should have this thing here at all. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Ken Floramo, 26318 Gorman Trail. First off, I want to thank you for your services to the community, because sometimes it's not a job you get thanked a lot on. So I want to make sure that everybody knows we appreciate your work. We had a little incident on the west side of town on Bruns. And for about 45 minutes to an hour, there was continuous automatic fire from weapons, assault and otherwise. I made a call to Laraway, and I asked if they were aware of it. I didn't hear any signal showing that there was a downrange officer at this fest. Come to find out, there's a farm just to the west of us at 6952 West Bruns. There's a new owner there. The previous owner passed away about 3-4 years ago. When I called Laraway, the dispatcher said to hang on. Okay. She came back on the phone and she said, the people that are having the weapons are all within their right. It's their property, and don't worry about it. And that was the end of the conversation. Now, I don't think the chief has heard about this, and it's very disturbing when you have 45 minutes to an hour of heavy weaponry going off, and it's surrounded on 3 sides by residential property. Some of the property is only 80 feet from the right-of-way to this farm. It's a little disturbing. So we got into a situation where we wanted some more information. And I don't know, the village has about 3/4 of its boundary surrounded by unincorporated property. I guess that's right. Mr. Wallace would know better. And what I'm interested in, and I know you guys are doing development, and you got people working with people who want to come into the village, but are you aware of any development on the unincorporated area? Do you have somebody that works with that?
Go right ahead, please.
Yes, we are aware. The process is that any use change, zoning change, anything that takes place in the unincorporated areas but falls within 1.5 miles of our boundaries, when that change or use goes up for hearing at the county level in land use, we are notified of that. And we have the opportunity to supply input to that. The specific situation you're referencing at this point is in the, it was unbeknownst to county, it was unbeknownst to us.
911 didn't notify the county? I thought the county runs Laraway. They don't talk to each other, or do we still have the impasse of humans.
I cannot answer that. I don't know how that end of it works.
Absolutely.
But the fact of the matter is that facility has been shut down at this point. There is a hearing, there is a meeting tomorrow in Will County. It's called a pre-application meeting. It's an information gathering meeting. There's no determination on whether it's going to be used or not. I spoke directly with land use, and so they're going to gather information, find out what the intent is going on, because they've also, that project or that facility's also been hauling in tons of dirt and truckloads of dirt, and land use oversees that for drainage reasons and for a myriad of reasons. So the process that takes place is an official application gets filed with land use. It gets assigned to an individual down there. If they schedule a hearing, the application calls for a hearing, they schedule a hearing. It's at that point, because they have all the information, they being the Will County Land Use has all the information. It's at that point that they notify the village with the information that they will be using for the hearing process. That information then is disseminated to first our P&Z, Planning and Zoning Board, and that Planning and Zoning Board communicates to this board what their feelings are on that based on its close proximity, the 1.5 miles with the municipality and other factors. And then this board makes a final recommendation that we officially create our favorable or opposition to any project, or no stance at all. And that letter is signed by the mayor, and it's voted on here, and it is sent prior to the hearing so that it is read into the record at the public hearing which the county holds.
Thank you for the procedure. I have a handout here, which we acquired on that pre-application conference for that property.
Yes, sir.
In that, several items of information are, but there's a note at the bottom that says Law Enforcement Training Center for local, county, state, and federal agencies. That's the proposal on 15 acres of the 160 that the farm is. I'll share this with you. If someone wants to attend, it's at 1:30 tomorrow. But it's disturbing in the fact that if it is agencies, we're not going to be empowered for any taxes. And if the facility isn't done as technically as it should, I did the Lansing Police Department shooting range, dog shop, and training center. Personally, we built that, our company. And it's a very technical thing, and that facility east of Torrance Avenue is in a light industrial area, not surrounded by residences. That's our concern. I don't think we want to live where we're living with people trying all kinds of equipment that might be paramilitary. As the chief knows, we're getting to a point where we're getting a lot of the surplus facilities from a lot of the places that we're pulling out of. And that is bothersome to a bunch of my neighbors and me. I left a message for you with my phone number.
Very good. For clarification, I believe the applicant, or I'll just say the applicant will be correct me, Chief, I think it's the Illinois Police Association is who was out there. I don't know who the final applicant will be. It is not representative of any law enforcement agency.
They don't even list the owner of the property. They don't list who's doing what, and it's a pre-conference, which is, okay.
Yeah, and that's the purpose of the pre-conference, is to gather all that information, but
I have a 0 to 10 rating for agencies.
Yes.
And right now, land use, I have a 2.
I got you.
There's a building on the farm opposite this that was built without a permit. I called land use and I said, what's happening? They said their inspector couldn't get up the driveway to look at it. There's a pavilion up there, and they were having parties, and people were sleeping overnight. And it's an abandoned, or not abandoned, but an alfalfa farm. Not exactly the high priority that we see on several of the other farmers and what they're doing. But thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just for the record, is that a meeting open to the public tomorrow?
It is, yes.
Okay.
Scott, did you want to make any comment of any kind?
Just one thing I would like to point out. The Illinois Police Association is not normally in the business of building and running ranges. It's an association of members of police officers throughout the state and throughout the country. I think that one of the participants and/or people who are involved in this may be a Illinois Police Association member, but I don't believe the association itself has any tie into this facility.
Thank you.
Morning, Mayor and Board. Lance Beckfar, 6532 West Cedar Court, the Gorman Farms homestead. I agree with Mr. Tuttle. There needs to be a lot more work done about the factory going up on Ridgeland, the Thorntons going up. Thorntons, I don't know, Mr. Wallace, I think you said 250,000 gallons. I thought the gentleman at the planning board said 450,000 gallons of gas and 500,000 of diesel. Figuring each car is between 12 and 20, I use 16 as a number. If they're putting out 450,000 gallons of gasoline a month, that's 28,000 more cars just for that gas station. That's not counting the 1,000 I'm figuring on Amazon, because they say that Amazon's workload is 4,000 people. I'm sick of catering to Amazon. I don't want to live in the United Nations of Amazon. You want to put a restaurant there, you want to make it easy. The trucks, if you talk about 100 gallons per truck, that's 5,000 more trucks per month in the area. I'm sorry to say, Chief, I kind of disagree. The amount of traffic and the problems we've already seen with Amazon and accidents and issues over there. If you're adding this other factory plus the Thorntons, you're strangleholding the area. I know you're not going to say no to Thorntons because it's 3% or 3 cents a gallon. So that's about $170,000 a year you're looking at. But I agree with Mr. Tuttle. Do it for the people, not for whatever else is going on. They're moving in here because it's easy laws and zoning, and they're going to make a buck. I guarantee that's all it's about. I think whether it's a county road or a Monee road, they should upgrade it to 2 lanes in each direction, period. They want to make the business, they need to pay for the business. Because right now with the truck stops on the east side, you got trucks parking on the egresses and on-ramps of Monee, or 57, which are undermining the roads, because I used to work in construction too, because they're parking off the road and they're putting divots in there, so it's undermining the roads. All of this stuff matters. You're going to have the transient crime, you're going to have the transient other stuff that goes along with it. How big a property is Thornton's buying for future? Yeah, you said about the one corner. How big a property is there? Future plans? Put in those, I think it once was said there was going to put in 60 truck parking spots. Is there room there that they're going to still be able to do that down the road? So that's that one. For this gentleman, I'm sorry, I don't remember your last name. I agree with him too. And they did have a sign up that said Will County Firearm Training Center. They put a berm up, and I remember the day that they were out there with the guns and stuff shooting, and it was loud and it was continuous for at least an hour. And I think the one thing I see here, especially with these people too, with their house that's having a problem where you have a residential area with a commercial over it, we really need to look at our zoning and where we can do things to help our people. I want to bring stuff for us. I hate going to Frankfurt. I hate going to Mantino. I hate going to other places. Even Peatone, which is a community about our size, has a Burkhart's. I don't see why we can't have things to support our neighborhood better than putting in more businesses that are just here because they can get in cheap. They can make their buck. I would like to see the grocery stores, the hardware stores. It can be done. You got strip malls all along Monee, Manhattan. You can't tell me we got auto parts stores. Why can't we have a grocery or a hardware store or other things that support us as a community? I think we need to look at that. We need to look at our infrastructure before we build other things, and it can't handle it because then we're behind the 8 ball. Because you know in government it takes anywhere from 2 to 10 years to get anything passed, financed, and going. And by then it's already outdated. So like these people, I would say the sewers need to be fixed before any building goes on around their house. I don't know how to say it any better. I'm sorry if I'm being a thorn in your side, but I came here because it had that nice atmosphere of a town that seemed like, you know, it's quiet, it's easy going and stuff, and all we were trying to do is go towards something like Chicago, and I guarantee you, you don't want to be that. Have a good night.
Anyone else for open to the public? If not, Larry, do you want to say something? No. If not, I'd like a motion to move into executive session for the purpose of collective bargaining, 5 ILCS 120/2, C2, and the purchase or lease of real property, 5 ILCS 120/2, C5.
I'll make that motion.
Second? Second? Any discussion? Roll call.
Trustee Blue? Yes. Trustee Horn?
Yes.
Trustee Razik?
Yes.
Trustee Udris?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to move into executive session, folks. Thank you all.